At the Jack Kerouac School of Disembodied Poetics, which is located on the campus of Naropa University. And one of my good friends and fellow students there was Tyler Burba. Tyler is from Vancouver. The time that I was a student at Naropa, I didn't know that Vancouver, Washington existed, and I had never been to the state of Washington at that point. Now things have kind of flipped, and Tyler is in New York City and I'm here, and so Tyler was coming into town and really wanted to play again, but I guess the last time that we played together was probably 98 or 99, so it's very exciting for me. I'm glad that you'll be able to witness this as it unfolds, because obviously there was no time for rehearsal whatsoever. And because he's the musician and I'm not, he's going to help a little bit if we get a little feedback. So enjoy as we get this going, and I want to, yeah. And what we're going to do is a bunch of poems with Tyler on piano, and then there will be a set of Tyler's music, and so you'll probably hear some of his guitar playing during that set. Yeah.
It might end up in your lap.
I think so. Okay.
Sure you don't want this? Yeah, I think you're up.
No, I think I'm okay. I think I'll be all right.
So the first piece is called Intend to Attend. It's a collage poem. There are some local people whose words are mixed in here, including Herb Stokes, Leah Noble Davidson, Doug Marks, Daniel Scatch Mills. But if you listen carefully, you may also hear from Wayne Shorter, my brother Jay, and Joseph Campbell. Intend to attend. A beautiful chaos, this life, a world of pure potential. Tomorrow the discomfort index will be quite high. The weight of too many goddamn outbursts strung around my neck like an albatross. Ghost glimpsed at the periphery, undefined blur caught by insufficient retina, fractals behind the eyes. The moment's gonna get you. Nurture it like a serpent to your breast, like a neutron caterwaul. Moments away from a fatality. Skeleton falling apart, filled with the seeds of all the troubles and blessings of existence, but also provided with the sustaining virtue, hope. Mississippi. The doll's visage falls from the balcony. Could not have anticipated this change. Harder than a metaphor, alone now forevermore, yet strangely connected to a new network of dazed bottom feeders in a crazed Narciso link, waiting on their reality show, unable to understand why they have yet to be discovered, wanting to matter a little too much. Phosphine Dream for John Pazinski. The man who is aroused by everything in the universe must inevitably be regarded as a deviant. Many are baffled and intimidated by such limitless love. Perhaps the knowledge that he has enough for all makes them feel less special. And doesn't everyone want to feel special? Centuries pass between each breath. The heart shatters every moment, sending luminous tendrils spiraling outward, shattering into infinite points, each of which carries the bliss born of boundless possibility. Always more than enough for everyone. So been very public about my love for psychedelic mushrooms, and there's one reason for this. Well, there's two reasons. The first reason is that I've never had a bad experience. The second reason is that I think if I'm willing to talk about this at the microphone, eventually I'll be in a room full of people, and one of those people will have some with them. And having found a kindred spirit, lay some of their mushrooms on me. So this is called Show Me Your True Face, and it's about an experience walking around the Couve on mushrooms. Elements conspire to alleviate mind fog and allow colorblind explorer to separate the greens, to see and differentiate between several different shades in each blade of grass, each leaf.
Oh, absolutely.
Breeze shimmers, soil hums, spirits imprisoned in ancient bark scream in anguish, and the enormous trees guarding the fort reveal themselves to be sentient beings with individual histories and personalities, willing to show their true face to one who is willing to take the time. An afternoon remarkable enough that even the wandering shrew has a smile on her face, warm enough to cause him to wonder if perhaps he had misjudged her. Somewhere along the way, he becomes the blade, rooted, fated to move as the wind commands. Heat increases perception of distance. Squirrel stared down, flinches and leaps at the arrival of Sunday douchebag on a motorized scooter, causing the animal to lose the staring contest. Finally home, thirst quenched, rests upon the queen's bosom to watch the ceiling lose its solidity and ripple like lake water. Each ripple, each blade, worthy of respect, worthy of forgiveness. What do you think so far? Oh, no shrooms? Scott. Well, if you had them, it would be better for you to give them to me here than over at the school. Yeah, so the title of this short poem comes from our Washington State Poet Laureate. She's about to become the ex. They're going to have a new one. I do these collage poems where I kind of, listen in, I steal lines from other poems, but what turns out is that a lot of the lines I get from other poets are the things that they say during the nervous chatter that people tend to do in between poems, so that's what happened here. I will try to italicize my voice. The time for subterfuge is past. I am an armature. I do like flowers and say odd things. Have quite simply forgotten the name of my universe. An invisible party hides around human beings. An alchemy in the margin. Enormous, visible or conspicuous, or at any rate, underlying. Hope and doubt linked forever in dance. So I blow them up with love. Pastoral. There is a determined melancholy to the suicide dive of autumn leaves as they tear themselves from the limbs of trembling trees to spiral earthward like eels caught in zoetrope flicker. Thank you. I'm really honest about how this poetry and music thing works. I'll tell whoever will listen that the musicians always make the poets look better. And I have a deep respect for all of my musician friends, and I've been really lucky with the people that I've done this with. I mean, I'm at that point in my life where I'm saying something like what I'm about to say to you a lot, which is that I've been doing this thing of reading poetry with musicians for 20 years. It might even be more, but it's around that amount of time. And every time my respect for musicians deepens, and part of the reason is someone can arrive from a plane on New York, no preparation, barely really any time to breathe or any kind of idea of what's happening, and it can be as beautiful as that. So I want to thank Tyler for making me look good. And my mouth is getting jealous of Tyler's beer. So if someone could help me get a glass of water, it would be helpful. It would be cool. Maybe there's one up here and I don't realize it. All right. Yes. Well, we're good friends, so I probably could steal some beer. But so one of the things that I do is my son, he's 13 now. He's been a subject of my poems. I've been writing poems for him and about him since he was born. Since he was before he was born. Thank you. And so he's 13, he's about to turn 14. I'm very impressed with him. He's definitely got it together more than I had it together when I was his age. It just continually impresses me. This is from a few years ago, probably in that range of 6 to 8 years old. And I think the poem speaks for itself, but I just wanted to give that idea in case you see him, that he's a little bit past this point, but I hope you'll think this is as remarkable as I did. Arts. Angelo and Jake are still young enough to pull back the veil, to reveal holes torn in the space-time continuum. Vanishing fences, unexplained electromagnetic occurrences, ghostly shotgun blasts. When Angelo grows up, he wants to be a scientist in order to prove that there is an alternate reality, a place where the conclusions to our dreams happen the next day, follow us out of the recesses of the mind, into the hallway, into the light. So, I think one of the things that being a parent teaches you is that, or reminds you maybe, is that magic exists, and we have to have the knowledge of that beaten out of us, in order for us to forget, and so most of us do forget. So if you are able to have that marvelous experience of being in charge of or responsible for the life of another human being in this way, you have an opportunity to be reminded that magic does indeed exist. And I don't think it's even really living vicariously. I think our children are magic, and so we experience the magic with them, not through them. Someone bought me a beer. Thank you. Is that you, Scott? Okay. We can put the mushrooms in the beer later. So this is, thank you for the beer, and this is another one that's about Angelo, though it's probably about, it's a bit more about what he's like now. One of the ways that Angelo is different from me at age 13 is he's more philosophical. He seems to have gotten a handle on this, on life, basically, in a way. He seems deeper than I felt like I was when I was 13. So maybe that's just my perception, but like I said, continually impressed, and that's why this poem is called Wisdom Resides in a Young Man's Heart. Little guy blows code for the first time, applies mask for the first time. Godhead cannot prevent truth from flowing forth. Not everyone accepts the truth in the secret, but all hear. None can deny its rumbling majesty, its life-altering tremble, the orgasmic buzz of its unassailable efficacy. The time has come. They are ready. Can you loan me your certitude? May I borrow your fading blueprint? Remove all questions from my mind? Take your smile for a test drive? Experience pure joy and wonder again? Law of attraction, a shaky proposition, comes down to faith. May have to recover your sense of infinity for a start. I have to whisper something in Tyler's ear now, but it's one of the cool things about doing this is you get to, it's like, how do I put it? He knows 100 times more about music than I do, although, poems are songs and songs are poems, but I get to kind of like influence his mind a little bit by telling him what I think the poem's about. I could be completely wrong. And then listen as he plays that. I know he can do it, he's been doing it. Grunts? Okay. We've decided to communicate through a series of grunts, and I gave him permission to shove me, but he's too nice. He's not going to shove me. So anyway, I recently read this amazing book about the connection between the surrealist artists and the Black Dahlia murder. So one of the things, if you don't know about that, is a woman who was probably sexually assaulted, mutilated, and left in a position on the grass that reflected some of the paintings of women and some of the sort of geometric shapes associated with surrealist painting at that time. So the book is trying to make those connections and kind of just get you thinking about that whole question of how does art influence life and life influence art, and make you wonder about did whoever the person was who killed this woman, was it a person who was a friend of these people? Was this person influenced by their art to do this horrible thing to her? And I wanted to address it. I mean, one of the things that's different about this book, it's called Exquisite Corpse, from other things that I had read about it or seen about it, was that it wasn't just one picture. There's a really famous picture that's in Hollywood Babylon, but it was all the sort of crime scene photos that they could find, and then sometimes sort of zoomed in to give you different perspectives on it and stuff. And when you see something like that, however many years removed from the incident, you can't unsee that. And I sort of needed to use my writing to try to deal with what the book had made me think about, how horrible that is. So it's for her, it's called For Elizabeth Short. An exquisite corpse, mutilated, bisected by a minotaur, singular or plural, and arranged in Duchamp tableau on Magritte grass. Subject and object, created to remind women that they are nothing more than an aesthetic fascination. Certainly not flesh and blood, most definitely lacking a soul. Casual bisection, collaborative mutilation, complete objectification. A young, vibrant woman, sliced into pieces to be disassembled and reassembled, rendering her a ready-made collection of geometric shapes with a gash instead of a lotus flower opened in enlightenment's bloom. That's beautiful. There was a time period that I was out here feeling really stuck, out of work. I was out of work, I was alone, I was many, many miles away from family and friends or anything that made any sense to me at all. And I was really wanting to, connect with someone in a romantic way, and I wasn't really ready. I was very angry still about the situation I had come out of. I didn't realize this yet, but sometimes even if you're not ready, you still feel like you want something like that to happen. And I was fortunate enough to make friends with several, 2 or 3 women who became really close friends, and all of whom I asked or tried to have sex with, and all of whom were smart enough not to allow that to happen because I wasn't ready and because it wouldn't have been a good idea. And I learned a lot from those people, and I began to see them as goddess angels because they taught me so much, and they put me in a position where I was eventually ready to meet and properly treat the girl of my dreams, who's here tonight, Tony Partington. So I was talking to some new friends that are here tonight earlier about how what writers do when they're experiencing pain or trauma is that they write through it. You write until you get to the other side of it, and it is something that you can do to heal yourself. And the really amazing, magical thing is that it also heals other people to hear that there's another person on the planet who's gone through what you've gone through. So I actually think that this next poem is a hopeful poem, but it does come out of that time period of feeling very alone and kind of lonely, but it's really about coming out the other side of it. It's called Some Angels Can't Dance. Definitely the place. This is the goddess cotillion. There is no sight more heartbreaking than the transformation of a woman's shape as she raises her arms above her head. Breasts rising into a stretch. Goddess angels have taught me more about the divine in the past year than a lifetime of priests and pastors were able. I read Just Kids, which is a memoir by Patti Smith. It's one of my heroes, about her time in the 60s, living on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. She was in a relationship with Robert Mapplethorpe. She was close to people like Sam Shepard, and just a fascinating sort of window into that time, and window into the thought process in an artist's mind as they come into their own as a creative person. I found it very inspiring. So I also used the poem about Patti to talk about or think about the differences, even though some of them are perceived differences, between artists who begin or remain on the two coasts. So this piece is called Bi-Coastal Devotion, and it starts with a quote from Patti Smith. If you happen to have her book with you, this is on page 61. It's a great book. It won the big award, like the big National Book Award, which they never give that award to poets ever, so it was a big accomplishment for poets everywhere. Yeah, read the book. Here's what Patti says. In the war of magic and religion, is magic ultimately the victor? Perhaps priest and magician were once one, but the priest, learning humility in the face of God, discarded the spell for power. Discarded the spell for prayer. Robert Mapplethorpe trusted in the law of empathy, by which he could, by his will, transfer himself into an object or a work of art, and thus influence the outer world. He did not feel redeemed by the work he did. He did not seek redemption. He sought to see what others did not, the projection of his imagination. nation in Islam have formed allegiance in a second to Cedar Saigo, Robert Mapplethorpe, and Patti Smith, pressed together in my bag, entwined limbs, commingled hearts, entangled in a demigod's embrace. There were temptations and witches and demons we never dreamed of. And there was splendor we only partially imagined. Page 288. Look on as moments blossom, bear fruit, wither and die, only to be replaced by further moments. Our friendship continues to open like a calla lily, forming a canopy in which to catch the sun. When at last all our moments have come to an end, look over your shoulder again to glimpse the kids we are and were, playing dress-up, listening to the Velvet Underground, digging Larry Rivers and Stan Brakhage, standing arm in arm on the Coney Island boardwalk, smiling for endless snapshots. No time to mourn, undaunted, unbowed. Faraway towers burst through concrete to shoot toward the sky. Reborn, determined never again to squander the light. Because he's at the piano and there's only one mic, we haven't heard anything from Tyler, so I want to get him up here for a second, and one of the reasons is the next poem was inspired by Ann Waldman, who was one of my teachers at the Kerouac School, and I'm sure that Tyler had some contact with. So I'd just like to invite him up to mention whatever you might want to mention about Ann, and anything you might want to mention about his flight from New York to Vancouver to Portland today. You have a few words you want to say to the peoples? Great, sucked. That's the thing about musicians too. People have few words sometimes. So Anne has a great poem that she recorded called "Without Stitching Closed the Eye of the Falcon," and this was my response to it. And I borrowed her use of the word "without" as a refrain. Without hesitation, without plan, without destruction, without fantasy, without blueprint, without memory, without image, without the touch of another, without habit-forming thoughts, leftover half-baked ideologies, old rumors become encrusted stereotypes. Without blame, without hate, without scapegoat, how will you protect the story you've constructed to help you forget your part in it? How will you make it if you are finally forced to admit that it is you and no one else who fucked it up this time? So performers like to get the audience involved, try to get the audiences involved in what they're doing. And the way that I do that, typically, is if I have a poem that doesn't have a title, I ask my audience to think about it and make suggestions for a title later on. So this is a poem that I wrote it quite some time ago. I like it a lot, and in all that time, I haven't really come up with a great title for it. So listen closely, and if you have any ideas, I'll take them all and You know, may the best title win. An arousing nexus of sex, weed, and chocolate holds unimagined rewards for the brave traveler. A far better evening for hardened hearts to be coaxed open. The perfect moment to pass through the portal. Rediscovered. Suddenly, the shrieks of children are indistinguishable from the bird's cry. Sorrow, laughter, and hunger bubble up to remind us not to die before we die. So one of the really truly great people who I met at the Kerouac School is the Finnish-American poet Anselm Hollow, and we lost him just last year. And one of the things that I did was I took a class with him on postmodern American poetry, and no one really knows exactly what that is. I don't think that Anselm knew what it was either. Most of those labels don't matter all that much or mean very much to people. It's just a way of talking about things, I guess, sometimes. So anyway, Anselm's approach to teaching the class, because the anthology, and it could have been one of 20 different postmodern anthologies he could have chosen to use for the class, he'd known personally a lot of the people that were included in this book. So Anselm asked us to read a few poems a week, and then he told us stories about the people, that he knew in the book. And Anselm was one of those people, and I have met some poets in my life that are this way, where his conversation about any subject, his sort of casual conversation, was poetry. And that's something for me to strive for, to be so steeped in it 24/7 that even just having a chat with someone is a form of a poem. So what this is I basically wrote down what Anselm said, the different interesting things that he said. I didn't know what all those things meant, and compiled them into a poem. And this was just published in a tribute to him that came out of the Kerouac School. So I'm really proud of that. And I'm sure that Tyler had some contact with Anselm as well while he was there. So I just wanted to read one piece of it for you. Nathan, just watch out for the painting that's behind you there, okay? And so I want to share that with you. What I decided to call the poem, the other thing was Anselm was okay with appropriation, which some people call stealing, right? He was really hip to it. He did it himself. He encouraged it. So I felt okay about using his words in this poem. So this is one piece from this piece called Twisted Strands of Thought on Basically Like Life. It's not just conceptual thought that's going on here. If you start hyphenating him, man, there's really no end to it. Operates with somewhat Olympian systems. Lets you dig his profile. Apes do that to show that they're not about to kill each other. Who wants to be the finger puppet poet? You stop somewhere for a drink, and then you motor on. You've abandoned the avant-garde. You're getting emotional and romantic. No matter what, you're not going to sell a lot of poetry. This is bad news. You're not given any specific information. The spaces in the middle one for Emily are very wide. I suppose it's good for you to fall into trances every once in a while. We love you, Claude. Come back. Slightly absurd, big, melancholy bear, powerful as ever, dogmatic as ever, as entertained by the human race as he is by squirrels and chipmunks. He's been working on this novel for about 10 years. I hope he doesn't disappear into it. We're out there in the mountains, doing strenuous things in the mountains and lakes and so forth, looking for a hefty injection. Still telling everyone to stop driving their goddamn cars and take up the staff. They ride off into the sunset, and now I have to get the kids off to tennis class or something. It would be one of those projects like Andy Warhol's Sleep. It would take hours. Maybe you could get a grant. So the last piece that I'm going to do, the reason that I'm a poet, or the reason that I decided to devote so much time and energy to trying to do this poetry thing, which can be quite mysterious, a pursuit, is because of Allen Ginsberg. I'm not the only person on the planet who's inspired to try to be a poet because of Allen Ginsberg, but for me, he rises above all of the other people who I spent any amount of time with, spent any amount of time reading, in terms of, just sort of leading me to this life of trying to really make poetry my life. And so I wanted to end with one of his poems. I think it's one of his best poems, and it's a poem that doesn't happen to include any of the words that got him dragged into court when Hal was released in 1957. It's just a beautiful poem, and it's called Song. Of the world is love. Under the burden of solitude, under the burden of dissatisfaction, the weight we carry is love. Who can deny? In dreams, it touches the body. In thought, constructs a miracle. In imagination, anguishes till born. Inhuman. Looks out of the heart, burning with purity. For the burden of life is love. Must rest in the arms of love at last. Must rest in the arms of love. No rest without love. No sleep without dreams of love. Be mad or chill, obsessed with angels or machines, the final wish is love. Cannot be bitter, cannot deny, cannot withhold if denied. The weight is too heavy. Must give for no return, as thought is given in solitude, in all the excellence of its excess. The warm bodies shine together in the darkness. The hand moves to the center of the flesh. The skin trembles in happiness, and the soul comes joyful to the eye. Yes, yes, that's what what I wanted. I always wanted to return to the body where I was born. Tyler Burba, let's give him a big hand. I asked him if he wants a break, he wants to keep it going, so I guess I just need a moment to set up and hear some music from